Every disagreement is somebody crossing your boundaries. Everybody's a narcissist. Everybody's gaslighting. Everybody's toxic. Every ex that you've ever had has a personality disorder. Sometimes people are just assholes.
She calling me crazy, I feel like Supreme Team back in the 80s. I'm talking my shit like some shady, you working a job. Baby, come lay me. Shit, my diamonds hit bright like a shooting star. We all boss, so they don't know who to go.
Baby, what happened to people just being assholes? And before y'all start in the comment, I know that those things are real things. I know that people are narcissists. I know that sometimes people do trigger you. But we just out here throwing the word around on TikTok and social media like they don't really mean anything. And I don't like that. Welcome back to Blunt and Unpopular, where I sit on my couch and talk about the shit that nobody wants to say out loud, but everybody's thinking. And today, we need to talk about therapy talk on the internet. I actually love that our generation talks about therapy more. I love that we're talking about mental health. I love that we're talking about boundaries. I love that we are learning what triggers us. I'm glad that we're learning more about boundaries. I'm glad that we're learning more about emotional attachment, trauma bonds. I am glad that we're all learning about these things. But this is where my problem lies. We've learned the word, but we haven't quite learned the definitions because y'all just out here using all those things loosely. Social media has made psychological concepts seem like they're very simple, and they're not. Y'all hearing words one time, like narcissist, and then y'all start diagnosing people. And then all of a sudden, y'all start seeing it in everybody. Everybody's a narcissist. But to be honest, y'all are out here using basic human flaws and describing them as psychological issues. Y'all out here using mental health terminology to describe everyday human flaws. There is a huge difference between recognizing behaviors and actually diagnosing somebody. TikTok University cannot give somebody a diagnosis, y'all. Everybody is not a narcissist. Let's just start there. I mean, I know it seemed like a lot of people have narcissist traits, but everybody is not a narcissist. Can somebody be selfish without being a narcissist? Absolutely. I have met a lot of selfish people in my lifetime, but I don't think they quite identify based on the characteristics, all the characteristics, as a narcissist. And that's just me being honest. Somebody hurting your feelings, lack of consideration, arrogance, selfish behavior, all those things sound like the person may be a narcissist, but that's just people being people, honestly. You can absolutely have narcissist traits and behaviors and not be a narcissist. Well, I'm not even going to say that. You can absolutely have those behaviors and traits, but I'm not going to be sitting on Instagram diagnosing you as a narcissist because at the end of the day, we don't know. Have y'all noticed how everybody's ex is a narcissist now? What were they before we learned the term narcissist? They were an asshole, right? Now, I'm going to be honest. I use this one a lot. Can't stand to feel like somebody gaslighting me. But everybody is not gaslighting you. Everything is not gaslighting. We need to learn the difference, myself included, between what it actually means to be gaslit. Somebody not validating your feelings, somebody lying, somebody not agreeing with how something happened in their head. That's not automatically gaslighting. Sometimes that person is not gaslighting you. They're just lying. We don't have to upgrade the term lying to a psychological diagnosis. Lying is just bad enough, and people are liars. They're not necessarily gaslighting you. We have turned boundaries into rules for other people, but boundaries are for ourselves. This is where a lot of y'all are gonna get mad at me about. A boundary is what I will do to protect myself, not a list of things that other people should do and follow, not a list of things that other people should follow. A boundary is set by you for you. There's a difference between saying, if you yell at me, I'm going to end this conversation, and my boundary is you're not allowed to yell at me. One tells you what I'm going to do, and the other tells what I'm trying to control you to do. The other is me trying to control what you do. And I don't necessarily want to do that. People really use the word boundary when instead they mean preference, ultimatum, request, requirements. It's not necessarily a boundary, but I think people have gotten these things confused because we've learned the word boundary. Putting the word boundary in front of something does not automatically make you right. Uncomfortable doesn't always mean that somebody's trying to trigger you. Can people please get this out their heads? Just because you're uncomfortable doesn't mean that you're triggered. Sometimes we're uncomfortable because people actually told us the truth, not because they triggered us. Maybe they triggered an unhealed version of us that we needed to be seen, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they triggered you. They just told you the truth and it made you uncomfortable. You don't like being triggered. You always getting defensive. You don't like being embarrassed, and you avoid criticism. You're not really good at receiving criticism. Those are easily triggering things, but being uncomfortable makes a person just uncomfortable. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're triggered. You're just uncomfortable or embarrassed. We done got to a place in society where anytime you feel uncomfortable, somebody has did something to you wrong. And that's not okay. Growth is uncomfortable. Accountability is sometimes uncomfortable. Apologizing is sometimes uncomfortable. Those are not triggering things. Sometimes even being embarrassed is uncomfortable. But that doesn't necessarily mean that somebody has triggered you. Don't let me get started on the word toxic. Toxic has become a word that everybody has used for people that they do not like. Not everybody is toxic. Maybe y'all even the toxic one. Somebody can be a bad friend for you and not necessarily be a toxic individual. They're just not for you. Honestly, you might just be incompatible. People grow apart. People communicate differently. People outgrow each other. Nobody necessarily has to be the villain. Nobody necessarily has to be toxic. That's the part that social media doesn't like, because if nobody's the villain, then nobody's the narcissist or the toxic one, right? Therapy language has become a way that people avoid accountability, to be honest. And I've noticed this happening for a couple of years now. People are using words like, you triggered me, you crossed my boundary, you're emotionally unavailable, you're gaslighting me, you're trying to manipulate me. But sometimes you gotta ask yourself, what did you do? And again, I'm glad that we've learned these therapy languages, but I honestly feel like learning therapy language is a way for us to examine ourselves and the things that we do versus us trying to diagnose everybody else around us. If therapy language only teach you how to diagnose everybody else and figure out if everybody else have a problem and not yourself, then baby, we done missed the chapter already. Now, I understand why this language has become popular on social media. I understand why people are finally able to have words to explain things that they couldn't necessarily explain before. Behaviors, patterns, things like that. But not everybody's gaslighting you. Not everybody's a narcissist. Not everybody's crossing your boundaries. We done learned the word, and now we have begun to overuse them. What I'm not saying is stop talking about these words. What I'm saying is that when we begin to overuse these words, eventually the words don't mean anything. Because a lot of the times I hear people saying, oh, this person is a narcissist and da-da-da, when the person isn't a narcissist. So I'm thinking anytime anybody says that somebody a narcissist, they're not necessarily a narcissist. There are people who are really narcissists out here. There are people who are really toxic out here. But when we're constantly overusing the word, they truly begin to mean nothing. Now, here's the part that might get me canceled, but y'all know I don't give a fuck. Here's to my blunt and unpopular opinion. Social media done convinced a lot of us that being uncomfortable, someone not agreeing with us, protecting our peace means never being uncomfortable, never challenging someone, never forgiving people, cutting everybody off. That's one that I see a lot. Oh, I'm cutting everybody off because I'm protecting my peace. Social media has really kind of normalized that. We've labeled everybody who disagree with us or everybody who we don't like toxic. A healthy relationship requires uncomfortable conversations. Sometimes people actually need grace. Sometimes somebody genuinely just made a mistake. Sometimes you're the one that actually owes the apology. All in all, I want us to keep going to therapy. I want us to keep recognizing the language. I want us to keep setting boundaries. I want us to continue keeping the peace. But I want us to actually learn what these words mean instead of using them to weaponize everybody around us just because we don't like them. Please stop diagnosing these people in Instagram comments. Now for my people, what word do you feel like social media has overused or misused? Because I already know that narcissist is one. That's it for episode 2 of Blunt and Unpopular. You can disagree with me, but you ain't gotta be weird about it. I'll see you on the next episode. If you haven't already, make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.